creatures, obviously. I mean, this movie is you know, it's a guy deciding to go on a journey and encounter creatures that have taken over the world and kind of inhabit the space that he needs to travel across. So it's his journey in terms of encountering and kind of growing as a person through this journey. So Michael was all about, you know, the storytelling of what's going on in the movie, plus how the creatures are going to play into that. And I mean, this is probably an interesting mix of a movie, because it's not your horror creature movie. It's kind of it's tongue-in-cheek, and he wants to see a humorous side of things, and so it's an interesting take on what we all think are kind of monster movies. So yeah, Michael's kind of key points to us, you know, in terms of setting out this thing, was trying to get the right balance between, you know, what he wants to see from the creatures in terms of a level of presence and scariness, but also balance, you know, the movie and the story, which is it's you know, this isn't a kind of a horror scary movie, so it's kind of it's going to be light-hearted and fun, and so it's an interesting kind of balance we have to do with the creatures. We've got probably about 10. I mean, we start, you know, in earlier on in the movie, we start with the first encounter is it's kind of in the place, well, it's in this building here basically, which is the colony. This is where Joel lives, and one creature breaks in back here, and we don't see much of this guy because it's all kind of dark shadow play. We establish Joel as being kind of a guy who he's pretty scared at this stage, so he kind of freezes in front of the creature, and his partners around him kind of end up killing the beast. But on the back of this, he's also deciding to leave this place and go on this journey. So he has to muster the courage and go up top to the surface. We encounter this frog that basically tries to flick its tongue and pull him in and eat him. And this is where we introduce Boy into the movie, because Boy's the dog, and the dog kind of comes in at the last minute and saves Joel from being pulled into the frog's mouth and swallowed. And it's done in a fun way. It's done in it's a nice little sequence, and the frog's fun to look at and a little scary, but not hugely. And it's a fun sequence. He falls into a pit, which is this big dark hole, and we're not sure what this thing is. And it turns out to be what we call these creatures sand gobblers. And the big version of it is a 40-foot long creature that's like a meter in diameter, and they can, you know, they can travel underground, and they hear tremor. I hate to say it, but it's kind of a take on Tremors, and the creatures kind of listen to sounds underground, and they attack their prey from underground. So these are the baby versions of it, and he's oblivious to what they are, and it's just he's in a pit, and these things are starting to gather around him. Clyde and Minnow, two characters who are just walking the countryside, happen to hear him wailing and screaming and come and rescue him. And then we go on a walk and talk with these guys, and this is where we then discover our first friendly creature, which is the Boulder Snail. And this is a huge, oversized snail. I would say it's 15 feet tall. The shell is 15, 20 feet in diameter. But it's a friendly creature. And this is the first time Joel realizes that all these creatures that now inhabit the earth, they're not all killers and not all there to eat human beings. Some of them are nice and friendly. After the Boulder Snail, we then encounter the Siren. He said goodbye to Clyde and Minnow, and he's on his trek, and he's crossing a marsh. And this thing, on the ground, well, the dog starts reacting to a high-pitched sound and starts freaking out. And Joel's trying to comfort the dog and work out what this sound is. He can't hear it. The dog's freaking out, and then suddenly the ground starts to move, and the Siren is like a huge oversized centipede, and so its legs are kind of coming out the ground, and the sound is actually its legs kind of chattering against each other. And this thing unfurls, and Joel, up until now, kind of Joel is kind of, he's getting over a fear of basically in the moment freezing, and so he's at the point, he's about to fire this arrow into this siren to save the dog, and he kind of momentarily freezes, and the siren whacks him out of the way. The siren's more interested in the dog because the dog's barking, and so Joel kind of comes to, and the siren's about to eat the dog, or pounce on the dog and eat the dog, and he manages to shoot the arrow and kill the siren. The crab has been captured by our bad guy in the movie, and he has a means of controlling the crab, and he kind of as part of the storyline, he lets the thing loose. We find out that he's in the movie. He's basically just about survival, and so he's about raiding colonies and stealing food. It's his own. It's basically self-interest. So as he's planning to escape, he's releasing this crab to wreak death and destruction on everybody, and Joel has to kind of defend everybody and fight it off. But again, with the crab, we end on Joel's in a position to actually kill the crab, and he kind of understands, and it dawns on him, realizes that it's not the crab that's kind of orchestrating what's going on. It's our bad guy forcing the crab to do it. So we end with the crab sequence with Joel actually shooting the chains that are tied to the crab and releasing him, and the crab turns around and heads back into the ocean after our bad guy. And I don't know whether we're going to eat him or not, but we're certainly going to sink his boat. I think the frog. Because it's kind of it's a fun. It's a small little sequence, and it's basically fun. It's kind of at that stage of the movie, we've kind of hinted at them being scary. This is the first real encounter with Joel, and it's people are going to like the frog. It's kind of its design and what it does. We meet Boy in the same sequence, so it's kind of it's the start of our journey for real with Boy and Joel, and it's a fun little sequence. I think what's going to make them special and unique is basically the movie they're going to be in, because, as I say, it's your classic interpretation of when you say we're making a monster movie is kind of Godzilla. I'm not saying our movie is not big action, but it's got a different side to it. It's kind of that just is. It's unique to we do have big action, but we also our creatures augment a character that is kind of on this journey, and we have humor,